taking our apart and putting it back together. Just taking the person out of the classroom into the real world is being done in two ways, for example, by this company. Number one is being done by taking them to a laboratory, which they currently have for relatively elite schools, bringing students from less elite schools into that and training them on things that really matter, which you will really use in your life once you get to real life work. And that 6-month band-aid is able to ensure that almost all of the students are able to get a job. That's critically important today. Maybe it's fixing a short-term problem, but it's good enough for now. The second way they do this is they have started a method called online internships. There are plenty of people in this room who have done well in life, who have achieved success at different levels. We are a hero to somebody in our lives. We've made a difference, somebody is looking up to us and listens to what we say. It's our job to scale that. To say, I can mentor a few hundred people online and I can run a case study online for a couple of hundred people a year. My time amount spent is the same, but I'm changing the lives of a couple of hundred people who will, for the first time in their lives, get out of calculus books or get out of economics books and get a sense of what it takes to build data chemicals to one particular plant, what it takes to solve a problem. What is the element of finance in it, economics in it, human resource problems in it, and how do I face those challenges later, bringing realism. That is being done by this company as well. Lastly, one critical element of skills that I want to talk about is standard setting. While we all talk about opening skill centers and getting the industry and the academia involved and work together, we miss one critical aspect, and that lesson has to be picked from the leader in vocational training and skills development, which is Germany. What Germany did in the 1930s when the auto industry was taking off and there was severe shortage of human capital because human capital was diverted to multiple other opportunities such as conquering the world, there was a realization in the industries that they had to work together and set standards. They created pretty much a cartel in hiring and said anyone that doesn't meet a certain standard of skills, which are documented, is not hired by any one of us. Any one of the 4 leading manufacturers of cars wouldn't hire anyone without the skills. Why is that important? Unless we set standards, unless we as industry adopt those standards, unless we adopt those standards to say we will only hire from that skill set, we don't promote the adoption of skills by the people seeking jobs. So it's great where we are today. We realize that we have to create skills, involve the industry. The next step is to make sure the industry hires in those standards as well. Once we achieve that, I think we will have a greater catalyst force towards building employability, towards building entrepreneurship in the country. Thank you.
That was mainly highlighting about things which, nowadays you find lots of books called What They Don't Teach You in Harvard. I think teaching what is not taught, I think, is one of the key focus which has been brought about, and also the focus on standard setting when you look at skills, the skill development. I think 2 key lessons. What I'd like to do, we've covered a vast array of topic here, but one thing which is coming through as a message is that with the vast number of people who need to be trained and skilled, there's a huge opportunity in the informal area. And what we also heard several speakers say, even in the formal area, there's a great opportunity because of the need to be different and creative about the solutions, because the world is looking for that. So we had 2 speakers from that. And thirdly, there's a huge issue about building an infrastructure in an infrastructureless world. That itself creates opportunities like 1 laptop per child. And we heard the government speak about the kind of support, and I'm pretty sure if you go to any corner of these 8 nations of the Commonwealth, which we're speaking about, education is one area where government is going to support. And government has limited finances, but it's all of us who can put these things together. So what I'm going to invite the next 15-20 minutes, maybe 3-4 questions from the audience. You can direct it to a specific speaker, and maybe clarification, maybe suggestions from your end, and then I'll sort of sum it up and bring it to conclusion. I'm sure all of you are waiting for your lunch, but let's go through that Q&A a little bit. We can hear you. I can.
informal education. And we talk about business opportunity in formal sector. The Indian law sees, a lot of education we talk about is formal education. The Indian law sees formal education in non-profit sector. Don't you see an inherent conflict and with the right to education and so many legislations coming in education today in India? How is the business opportunity?
I'm going to invite you, Shankar. You probably looked into it a bit more than others.
Let me give you some perspective. I also run an education institute. So I got into this field 5 years, family business and everything. And so I run an education institute.
I'm going to relay it to you. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Okay, the question was very clearly there are lots of issues in the formal sector. Someone who's entered that sector, restrictions from government, there are things like right to education and lots of other areas which sort of, so he's saying how do we go about fulfilling this demand broadly?
I wish I had an answer, in the sense, you said you're from the sector too. But I guess one side India will move on and change a lot more because already we all know that there is a lot of potential in the periphery space of formal education. In the services, in technology, in providing many things which is associated to formal education. But in the core of formal education, I think there will be, very soon there will be change. And even though we can't see policy coming our way, and as you rightly said, the policies look as if it's going the other way, right? And saying that, you mentioned right to education and such of these policies, which in a populous nation like India, in a diverse space, I think it's extremely important we need to balance that too. Because unless that is there, some of the great things that we've already achieved in this nation, as we've become a strong player in the human capital space, is with that sort of a system and policy. So I think what will happen is it will be a balanced approach which is going ahead, and the possibility for value addition in terms of a business will happen in its periphery first, in its services and everything associated. Core of it, I think, will remain in this angle for a little more time till I think the demography is ready to accept a full-blown opportunity in that.
Dinesh, you had some perspectives on this. Over-regulated.
I think you deliberately asked that question to set the cat among the pigeons, right? Since you are very much in the sector, and as my friend rightly said, we have a political compulsion, right? That education should be a not-for-profit sector. So I just have two comments. Perhaps the people in education make a lot more money than the Indian telecom sector does. Anyone also disagree with that? No. Right? Okay. The second one is that officially education, you can't make profit in education. There's ample opportunities to make profit around education. Everyone agrees with that or also disagree with that? No. Right? So I think there's a tremendous opportunity. Yes, as my colleague rightly said, it is politically extremely inconvenient right now to talk of for-profit formal education. But believe you me, there is phenomenal opportunity in formal education with all the restrictions to make tons of money around the education sector.
Excuse me, can I go for that? Hi, I'm Rasika, and well, sir, what you just said may be true, but I think that's true of all sectors of the economy in India, not just education. Having said that, I wanted to ask Shankar and Sandeep specifically. A lot of things are easier said than done, and it relates to what comment you made just now also. But what is it, how is it that you think that we can change what you think and you see that you see, rather than just observing what is going on? If the panel can answer that, maybe it might lead to a more conclusive, sort of discussion. Because here you are saying education is business opportunity. Yeah. And in India, the Gurukul system It's a noble thing. It's not for profit, as you rightly said.
So I think just very quick, if we can answer the question that you asked, which is actually very hard to understand to start with, because it's a very philosophical question and it's an important one, then we would have answered the entire dilemma that faces the entire education system in the world, not just India. Just taking examples from some other global and lessons. I don't like this mic, I'm going to stand up. Sorry, this is much easier mic, I don't know why that has more echo for me. So, Brazil, what did Brazil do 20 years ago? What did China do 10 years ago and 12 years ago? Brazil privatized the higher education system about 20 years ago. Brazil was a country of equal amount of disparity in haves and have-nots, like India. There are few elements of that, few data points, which show that private education has played a significant role in bridging that gap. May or may not be, but that's been proven. And it's same in China as well. In fact, China's gross enrollment ratio about 20 years ago was half of India. Today it's double of India, and primarily driven by private education. So whether we choose to make profit or not in education, education has delivered reasonable returns to promoters, individual investors in a tax-free environment for decades now. Why is that good? Leave that question to hang in the air. I don't have an answer, maybe everybody else does. Second part is, if you can deliver good quality, measurable, forward-looking, global quality education at an affordable price and have processes that are around cost control but not around quality control, not around poor quality but quality is not compromised, and you make a tiny 15% margin, which is by the way allowed by the not-for-profit system in the trust structure as well, it's okay to do that. So let's leave the moral argument out of why education may or may not make money. Let's focus on who can do their job best. If the government today is seeking help from the private sector to come in and provide better quality and global perspective of education which prepares the young Indians and young Asians for a global workforce in the future, it's okay to provide that, because while we may have brutal system in the past, it's great for that time, it has great elements of it which can be brought by the private sector into the new education system. It doesn't fully work today. We have evolved 2,000 years later. So I think it's a very difficult question to answer in a setting which is a mix of social, economic, political and commercial interests here. But at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong answer. It is about doing the right thing with high quality focus and delivering absolutely for that constituent that you're working for the best you can do without charging a whole lot. If you can do that, you've done better than what was done in the education system yesterday.
Excuse me. Yeah. I have a question. Yeah. So I come from an industry which does research and data. It lectures around the world. Yeah. So I come from an industry which deals with a lot of data and research around the world, which deals with a lot of intellectuals and assist in the research around the world. And doing that research and education also,
someone told me, hold the mic like lady.
Okay. Yeah. So in this research we found two problems that Indian economy is facing right now. One is that, and you all shared the same one today, is that unskilled labor wants to migrate and get jobs but they cannot. And the second is that there are so many of them that you need entrepreneurship to flourish those jobs, right? Now these are two problems that need to be addressed, and there was one solution that I read in a research which could add a note here. The companies which are hiring from tier 3 colleges and not tier 1 colleges. Tier 3 colleges students have higher retention in the firm as compared to tier 1 colleges. And retention is a big issue right now in the industry. The second is that the growth in productivity of the tier 3 student employed over time is triple as compared to the growth of productivity of a tier 1 bank. I'm not saying the productivity as such, but the growth in productivity over time is different. So this calls for the industry to go to those schools where you do not go for placement. You cannot go there, you do not have access to placements there. You go there and you train those guys, you improve their skills to be, employed ready, and that benefits you because it's improving your retention. And secondly, they have a high growth of productivity over time.
Yeah, thanks. I think the comment is well placed in terms of, industry should interface with institutions more. I'm not taking tier 3, I'm saying tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 industry must interface. But I also sort of respect what Sandeep said. Whatever we do, we must set standards. I think that, he meant it for the skilling, but I think it holds true even for formal sector. You need standards. I think that's a comment which I would make. And many of these institutions today are suffering because their focus has been more towards money in terms of without setting standards. I think as Sandeep highlighted, it's not bad to make money, but at the end of the day, but you must set standards. I think that's been the highlight with which we started with Khadija and we ended with Sandeep. Any further questions? Maybe we can take last 2 questions. Yeah, one hand going up. Yeah.
I'm Shashank. I have a question about the access of education. I'm not talking about formal or informal, either way. The question is, when we have technology to reach every nook and corner of the world, like the mobile networks, then why cannot education reach the nook and corner of the world? I mean, it's basically the same technology that we use. For example, cloud computing. We can make it a generic education, reach all the people who need education from all the nook and corners of the world. Why is it not being sunk in?
Education reach all corners of the world. If you want to address that, or like you want to go, okay.
Couple of lines on that. I'll give you an example. I don't have a very broad answer to this. We're looking at a company right now which provides anybody in the room the ability to become a teacher and anybody in the room to be a student of any subject. Right? That's democratization of education, massification of education, where you as a teacher can pay 10,000 rupees for an online platform, upload your courses, and teach anybody anything, anytime you want. Leveraging social learning, and I as a student can pay you 100 rupees for a course, 100 people can pay you 100 rupees, maybe 1,000 can pay you. Nobody has ever been able to disrupt education with the internet yet, but things like that are going to happen. You heard of massively online courses, MOOCs. Those things are great for a segment of the population which understands the concept of MOOC, but a segment that doesn't get it, online education, one laptop per child, other initiatives are taking education to the people in a massive way. It's beginning to work out.
The big comment from Satish and Hitesh before we take the last question on that.
One thing I would like to say, if you are making money from anything in education, you are actually skilling, you are giving training, you are not educating. Think of the countries which actually have learned to create knowledge, or the frontiers of knowledge. Their education reached everyone well before the pieces of technology as such. In America, everyone had education before they got their cell phones, or any technology as such. So in Europe, so in any of the advanced middle course countries. Point is to understand, what we are doing is, we are responsible in creating for-profit and non-profit institutions where they can earn to address an immediate problem, a spot problem, where you can make money around education. But that is that education is the basic question you ask. Education is what liberates, helps you become creative. But learning a skill is a very different story. So you have to distinguish between these two things. And one laptop per child was designed as a cell phone of education. Just like cell phone became viral, in 10 years it could cover the ground from 2% to 80-90%. OLPC can help the child learn 2 things. Number one, it becomes real education, where a child, even the underprivileged, learns as best as, say, Exeter or Andover, or doesn't matter which school you're looking at, despite all the lack of infrastructure and privileges. So how do you do that? That's why it was created. But do we have the capacity to even understand what's been created? That's the major challenge that I'm facing. That India is not stopping to look at. what is the possibility to change what we haven't delivered in 65 years? Can we do that? We are looking at small spot challenges which will give us small advantages and profits. But government is not able to look at what is ahead, what we should do, what we are missing out on the table. I'm the same child who comes from a village where the per capita income is 10,000 rupees a year. And government gave me 5,640 rupees scholarship for a 11-year period and allowed me to pay back 10,000 times in taxes. If they did the same thing to every child, just imagine how big a country India will be.
I think what you asked for is very much in the offing. There are quite a few initiatives that are being worked on. Of course, the classical case study is the Grameen and British Council in Bangladesh, which achieved a lot for English literacy using the cell phone. There are a lot of initiatives that are rolling out in India, Malaysia, Thailand, using not only the mobile phone as an IVRS mode, but also using the DTH. So, maybe in a year or two, you'll see this model is emerging significantly.
Thanks, Manish. I think
Yeah, is this clear? Excuse me if I don't
yeah,
stand
that is the
up.
last question. Yeah.
Excuse me if I don't stand up. It's terribly cold and I'm huddled. But I want to know about the incorporation of innovation or skill set in our education systems currently. How sustainable is this, considering us creating jobs right now or up to this point, has created, at this point we have great amount of unemployment. Will our future resources be able to accept this, innovation or entrepreneurship, incorporation? Do we have the resources to sustain such? And I'm asking the question to the panel as a whole, not to anyone individually. Yeah, that's about it.
Sorry, I didn't capture it. Yeah, innovation and education, I think there is a way like to last comment on that. In terms of
I can just give a general perspective. I can just give a general perspective, not specifically to India, of course, but I think it has to be sustainable in the long run. When you're talking about higher unemployment, I think this is very common in this part of the world. And if we want to cater to handle the unemployment issues, the higher education has to incorporate the skills. Skill development is not a separate subject. It can be incorporated as part of the curriculum. The teaching has to be in a way where skills are incorporated in an individual so that when he or she comes in the workforce, either they can find a job for themselves or they can create job, by being an entrepreneur, coming up with innovative ideas, using technology at their hands. So I think it is sustainable and it has to be sustainable for our economies to grow and prosper.
We are going live on Facebook and Twitter. There is a question on Facebook from Mr. Nabil, who is asking, will privatizing the education system solve some of the problems? This question came on Facebook as we are live on Facebook and Twitter. It's me here. So I'm just re-telecasting what was put across on Twitter
oh, I
and
see,
Facebook.
we are on Facebook, okay. So Shankar, would you like to sort of address this issue?
So, I think for sure, somebody's already given statistics on China and what private education has done. And we have enough statistics sitting in this state of Maharashtra, the state I come from in Tamil Nadu, what private education has value added, the system in terms of numbers, in terms of innovation and everything. One comment that I'll also finish by with 2-3 questions which came in earlier. I personally think, going back to the numbers in Asia, specifically in India, there's no way but innovation. There will be a push into government, into private education, into higher education from the young people to change. It will be smart for us to change before they demand it. It will be smart if we, in informal systems, whatever systems they might be, to understand what is there, and that's exactly what innovation is. And if it's going to be sustainable or not, for sure it's sustainable because this is related to humans, and for sure it will last as long as people want that change. and I personally think there's going to be a very exciting moment in the next 10 years. Use of technology already happening. Just yesterday, my nephew, when I was asking him how to use my Apple time machine, trying to read an instruction book, and he says, why would you do that? Go on YouTube, there's somebody who's given an answer, watch a 2-minute video, figure it out and do it. They're learning in very different ways. And I think all we have to do is understand it and incorporate it, and I'm sure it's going to happen. Thank you.
We had a very wide range of discussions, starting from Khadija, Shankar, Mr. Sahu, Sandeep, Satish, and Nilesh. And I don't want to summarize this. So one of my most brilliant professors once told me that if you've been attentive, you don't need a summary. If not, you certainly don't need a summary. So with those comments, I'm going to sort of finish this panel. Thank you everyone. Thank you for being here.
To the panel, as a token of our appreciation, I would like to request the chairman of YI Mumbai chapter to hand over a memento. This is a book on young Indians, the change we want to be, released at our national summit a few years ago by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Thank you so much for being part of this extremely interesting session. Thank you. Thank you. We'll also be moving straight into our next panel. So those who would like to tea or coffee, please take your cups and come back onto your tables, please.